All right, hello, all. Jace here. Um, I'm here with Jim. We're gonna do a short little Thanksgiving episode, just kind of talking about our thoughts on Thanksgiving, what Thanksgiving has turned into, and how we feel. Um, say hi, Jim.
Hey, what's up, guys? Good to be back. Hope you guys enjoy your Thanksgiving. I know that we will. Would you say so, Jess?
Yeah, I've got two. I'm gonna deep fry one turkey and smoke the other, so we're gonna have turkey galore. Um, so the reason I wanted to do this, number one, is just kind of to talk about our thoughts on Thanksgiving, our thoughts on the tradition, our thoughts on the holiday, and more importantly, our thoughts on what what people have tried to turn Thanksgiving into. What it has become, the negative connotations that have gone along with Thanksgiving today, which I think are just ridiculous. Yeah, we did a little research into this, leading up to this episode, and found out a little bit of information on it, just kind of the basis of it. And, it sounds like it was just kind of a continuation. The Native Americans had a harvest festival at the end of a harvest, which for most agriculture, you know, um, harvest is usually done late September, early October, somewhere in that area. So it kind of makes sense that it coincides with this time of what we recognize Thanksgiving as. But the Native Americans had these harvest festivals. Several Europeans, they also had some form of a harvest festival, and one particular tribe, which I'm not going to try to pronounce, they had a harvest festival with the Pilgrims that ultimately evolved into what we know as Thanksgiving. Um, I think the the main thing that bothers me now is what society today has tried to turn Thanksgiving into as this celebration of the victimization of Native Americans. And I thought this was particularly compelling for us to discuss because Jim is a Native American. He's a Cherokee Indian, and I thought it might be good for our viewers who maybe don't know very many Indians to hear what people actually think about the holiday as opposed to what you hear mainstream media and everybody else tell you the holiday is. But I don't want to speak for him. Jim, what are your thoughts on Thanksgiving? What do you think it stands for? Does it stand for anything? What does the holiday even mean to you?
I think it's kind of interesting because when we previously spoke about this, I had no idea of this negative, you know, idea of Thanksgiving. I guess I'm just a good old American boy. I just, we have Thanksgiving, we celebrate our family, we thank God for our country and all the things that we have, and that's what I grew up knowing because um, my our grandparents fought, World War II. They were the greatest generation, and that was just good old American stuff. It's family stuff. And yeah. The Indians and Pilgrims were, part of that conversation growing up, but it was never focused on the negative things of it. It was more of the celebration of life and, prosperity. And I don't know where it got hijacked to be a negative thing at all. I just don't understand why it would get hijacked. What's wrong with getting together with your family and, being thankful for the things that you have and celebrating with each other, once or twice every year. I think it's a beautiful thing, and it's just more of a community thing that we should be doing and not thinking of it as something negative. It's actually something good, but I think it's kind of weird that someone would think it was negative. I never seen it that way, never thought of it that way.
Well, and I don't think people that I think what you end up with is people that really, number one, you got people that really want to be a victim. Number two, you got people that really want to paint other people with the victim brush. You got all these woke people that desperately want to show how sympathetic they are for you and all of your struggles. And so this is one way for them to do that. not realizing that, well, I don't know if they realize it or not, but what they are in actuality doing, in my opinion, is is belittling you, belittling Indians, belittling whoever, but in this case, Native Americans, um, making you less than, making you a people that need to be rescued once again by these white people, which flies completely in the face of everything they say they're fighting for when they're fighting against Thanksgiving. But I agree with you. I think, to me, I think Thanksgiving has always just been about family getting together and enjoying a meal, enjoying fellowship, and just hanging out. I mean, Thanksgiving never really held a great deal of meaning to me. I mean, growing up, or at least we did. I don't think they talk about it anymore. But when we grew up, they talked about, the Pilgrims and the Native Americans coming together and having a feast and all this. I don't even think they teach that anymore because, yeah, whatever. But I knew that, but it wasn't why I celebrated Thanksgiving. I mean, it was just an opportunity for the family to come together and eat, basically.
Yeah, I never know when Thanksgiving had a political agenda. I thought it was a little
Well,
bit
what
more.
doesn't?
Yeah, I thought it was a little more simplistic than that. And, for anyone listening, I just have to say that, it's perfectly fine for people to call me Indian because and most Indians will, or Native Americans, we will call each other Indian. It's not some derogatory term. I mean, we're where we live at, this is the most Indian populated place in America. So, where that's at, it's kind of hard not to just, it's in your culture too, just by living here. They're Indian, you know, um, and it's not offensive to most Indians to call them Indian. Heck, a lot of them got a license plate that says in, it has the letters NDN on it. So I don't think they're really offended by being called an Indian at all. I think there's more pride.
Yeah, well, and I'll say that I've caught flack for, I, I married a Cherokee woman, and so I've become much, probably much more comfortable and much more knowledgeable of Native Americans and of the culture and all of those things than the normal person. And so, you know, I've caught flack for calling people Indians, but that is purely because I have been in many rooms full of many of them, and they all call each other Indian. None of them have ever called each other a Native American. It's like, it's just, to me it's to me it's stupid. And once again, I think it kind of goes back to the same point of people just really want a cross to hang themselves on. They just really want somebody somewhere to be victimized, and then they can be victimized vicariously through that. I think that's at the core of all of it. But and I think, and I kind of want to address this because this is something you and I actually have never even talked about. Um, I think a lot of it comes back to, and we're seeing this a lot with, you were seeing it some with Native Americans. You're seeing it a lot with Black people, and you know the fact that we can no longer, and this is at the core of this Thanksgiving thing. Like I said, you weren't super familiar with it because why should you be? It's stupid. But this idea that we need to do away with all traditions, because in this case we have to do away with the Thanksgiving tradition because of the Europeans coming in and colonizing this country. Just like we have to do away with every Thomas Jefferson statue because he had a slave, and we had legal slavery way back when. They correspond very closely in the mentality of people that argue against the different ideals. And what are your thoughts whenever if you hear somebody talking about, well, why should you celebrate this holiday for these evil Europeans that came in and brought you disease?
I honestly don't even know what to say. I might be kind of flabbergasted. Like, what are you talking about? Um, I I know a lot of people, and everybody likes to hold on to the past, and they want people to pay for. I mean, I know that there's a big thing from a lot of black community these days in certain parts of the country about reparations for slavery, and my thing with things like that. I mean, it's we got to let go of the past. We have to move on. We have to. I mean, yes, there are so many horrible things that have been done in the world by so many horrible people, and even people that we praise that we didn't know about. And I mean, what, we're having court over all these people. I mean, are you a bad person? I mean, I kind of go back to our belief. It's like if if you cast the first stone. I mean, if you are free of doing any wrong, then you can cast the first stone. And I just don't know how anybody could sit there and say, hey, this was wrong, and that they never done anything wrong themselves that maybe need some forgiveness for. You talk about Thomas Jefferson. It's kind of weird to say this, but it was kind of during the times that was kind of what went on. It was kind of, it wasn't thought as a, weirdly enough, it was thought totally as a negative thing for some people. It was almost a norm. But I think when those things, when it comes to Native Americans, I don't see how there's a negative thing tied to Thanksgiving, because it was intentional to be a celebration of life and harvest. So I don't know um, how letting go of the past is a better way forward and living today. I think we can all give each other a little bit of forgiveness, over the things that I don't know if anybody is still have a living relative that was a slave, or was harmed by the cavalry, or by the U.S. Army. I mean, I even served in the U.S. Army. I love my country. I don't know where all this come from, because it just kind of takes away what we grew up that message would be. Is like getting together as community family. Why do we need to make it different? Why does it have to be something negative about? Why do we have to try and find a way to cause division? Is the way I would say. Why are we trying to cause division?
Yeah. Well, and I think, and that's where, it's really hard, and it sucks, but it's hard for me to even have these sorts of conversations because there's been so much guilt placed on white people, especially white Christian men. I mean, I'm basically the devil incarnate. It's hard to even have the conversation these days because you're just automatically painted with a certain brush, and if you don't completely sympathize with every talking point that somebody has, well, now you're a racist, or now you're a sexist, or now you're whatever. um but I'll say that, even where with this particular conversation, you know I don't know that there are many white people left in America, and I know I'm definitely not one of them, that thinks, yeah, great. It was awesome what we did to the Native Americans whenever we came in and colonized, and everything was beautiful. And I'm really glad with every choice that every white person ever made. You know, it was some of the treatment was horrible. Some of the things that they did were terrible. They were just atrocious. It doesn't change the fact that colonization has been a part of every civilization since mankind. And part of colonization is assimilation. It doesn't make it I wouldn't even say right or wrong. I don't even know how you get into right or wrong when you're talking about colonization, because every culture everywhere has always done it. Just like with Native Americans. You know, you guys took certain regions of the country before America became America. You invaded, you colonized, you you took over a people, and they assimilated to the invaders' culture. I mean, it's there's never been a time when that wasn't the case in America, or in human history. And so it's like there's nothing wrong with thinking, these terrible things had been done, they led to the greatest nation in the history of mankind. They led to a people like Native Americans, like black people, like, Asian people, whatever. They led to a culture that accepts and embraces and melts, the melting pot thing, all of these cultures into one to become the greatest nation in the history of mankind. And so why wouldn't you want to just be a part of that culture instead of thinking, well, screw you for what your great 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 grandfather did, 300 years ago. I don't understand the mentality. I don't get it.
Yeah, I believe it's to me. I really feel it's kind of a to me it's kind of an opposition to take, just because I guess the things that happened in my life, I realize that we need to focus on the day and now, and we just if we there are a lot of horrible things done. We can't erase the past, and like you said, removing statues and things like that that can be a horrible reminder to somebody. Um, Maybe it is. Maybe it is, and maybe it should be removed. But there's so many things that our country has done wrong. If we just, I've always felt like when you are evaluating something, you usually can shoot holes through anything if you really start getting down to it. It's what type of lens are you looking at it through? And if I think you're looking at it through that the holiday was made to bring people together and to pray and to celebrate what we have, if that message is not, that's what it was intended to be. Anything beyond that, I don't think it was, the pilgrims, like, someday they're going to be, someday, they'll figure out our holiday was had this political, aspiration behind it. I just don't think it was that. And that's kind of like, maybe even people who try to interpret what the founding fathers were saying in the Constitution, things like that. They're really put their trying to read their minds over, so long ago, what they were thinking and their mentality and all those things. I think it's kind of inferring a lot of things that aren't really there. The root of it all, if it was really that bad, I don't think they would have been having dinner with the Native Americans or the Indians at that time, and then wanted to continue that holiday with them if it was really a bad scenario.
Yeah.
And of course, let me mention that that's also before we had the Indian removal acts. With Andrew Jackson, we had all the different Western expansion. You mentioned also, we know about smallpox. The things like that were used to eradicate a lot of Native Americans. This was before then, but even now, all those horrible things that America had done. I'm thankful to be a Native American. I'm thankful to be alive, and I'm thankful to be here, and I'm thankful for my country. I love the country, and what I grew up understanding. I'm not offended. If kids want to make feather hats during Thanksgiving and turkeys and dress like pilgrims, there's nothing wrong with that. That's good old American stuff. That's just, to me, that's Americana. I don't
See,
think they're making fun of anybody.
and also that to me, that's no different. To me, growing up, that was no different than putting on a cowboy hat and carrying a cap pistol, dressing up like any. I mean, it was literally the same thing. And I see that now. And I'll say this for any of you who don't necessarily live in a region that has a lot of Native Americans. All this stuff about the Washington Redskins and the Cleveland Indians and Miami, or not Miami, Florida State Seminoles. The tomahawk chop and all that. The Atlanta Braves.
Thankfully, the Braves kept theirs. I'm a
Yeah,
Braves
yeah,
fan, so I'm so
yeah.
happy I can do the tomahawk chop when I go watch them play a game.
Well, and that's what I was going to say. The only people really not upset about any of that were Native Americans. None of them care. And I will tell you all, for any of you who don't grow, this idea of redskin and savages and things like that, that is a badge of courage for Native Americans. It is not an insult. For any of you that think it is, they take great pride in their heritage and in their nature and in their history. None of that is an insult to the vast majority of Native Americans. It's just not.
Yeah, seeing just little kids at school, I grew up watching that, and not a moment, and I see someone like, "Hey, that looks like me." They're making fun of me. No, it's kind of a celebration. They're just showing off. They're representing what happened at the first one. It's just like they're wearing a costume, and I don't think they're up there insulting anyone. Like I said, it comes kind of get back to it's about communalism. That's what that was about, being thankful for what we had, not um, yeah, horrible things happen after that, but I just don't see the offense in that. I don't see the offense in the Redskins. I mean, even the Redskin fans will tell you that the actual I forget the name of the Indian head that was on their helmets, that was actually drawn by a Native American artist.
Yeah.
So I mean, it was there's a lot, like you said. I think you said it well. Native Americans have a lot of pride and a lot of pride of what we have in our culture, and if it offends us, I don't even know how I would respond. You've been around my Indian family. We'd probably just be like, we probably wouldn't talk to you no more. Like, okay, we don't like that guy. He's not very nice. But it just, I don't know. It's not offensive to me. Thanksgiving is just a good old American holiday, and we're getting together for family.
Well, and I'll say that, and with that, with some of the things with the expansion and everything else, and the setup of reservations, and again going back into the legalization of slavery, just all of it under one big umbrella. Nobody argues whether or not those were horrible acts. But at what point are you just gonna? Well, at what point are you going to let it go? At what point are you going to stop condemning the person next door for something that they had absolutely no part in playing? I mean, at what point are you just going to let it go? Because trying to find a reparation, in some cases, literally a reparation, but in other cases, even stuff like this, doing away with the Thanksgiving holiday is a reparation. You're trying to remove a part of culture because you disagree with a moment in history. At what point are we going to realize that that stuff serves no purpose? It does no good. It accomplishes nothing. I mean, and maybe that's where our Christian nature comes back into it, where we live in a now largely secular society of this idea of the only solution is forgiveness, because you can come up with all of the conciliatory plans you want, and they're never going to bring someone peace. Only forgiveness will.
100% agree. I found that even in Journey My Faith, it's really about, you got to forgive. And that's what I feel. That's where my heart is too about all this. When I say live in today and just don't dwell in the past so far. Yeah, there's horrible things that happen, but um, you have to forgive. You have to forgive everybody that's wronged you. It's just because you hold on to that. And if you don't give it up, your peace is gone, and I mean, I'm at the best peace I've ever had in my life because I learned how to forgive so many different things
I
and let
think,
things go.
and I think that's a perfect point. Is that, and for anyone who's harboring any of these thoughts, at the core of it, when you are forgiving someone else, or someone else's culture or whatever, what you're really doing is bringing yourself peace. It is every bit as much about you as it is about that person that you're forgiving, because it brings you peace, and that's the only place you're going to find it.
Yeah, that's that peace with the past is a real hard thing. It's there's no, I don't believe in forgive and forget. You can forgive, but you won't ever forget. You'll always have that because obviously it hits you in a certain way. But this topic obviously doesn't do that at all. I mean, I'd never sense that feeling of being offended, and um, it just, when you mentioned that to me earlier, it just kind of blew my mind. Like, well, why would somebody do that? You know, odd.
Yeah. Well, and I think a lot of it comes back to that the overall concept of of national pride. I think a lot, because it's a national holiday. So I think it all comes back to the so many people today want to just do away with this concept of national pride. And like I said, I think they could learn a lot from people like you who, you know, you live, or you're a part. of, or historically, you're a part of this marginalized society, and you were victim. Your people were victimized, and you're still a proud patriot. You're still providing for your family. You're still not harboring any of that. You're just worried about doing better for you and yours, and being a good Christian and being a good man and being a good father, instead of harboring all these ill thoughts on a concept that, number one, there's nobody left to punish, and number two, are going to bring you no peace. I think people can learn a lot from someone like you that accepts that the past happened. It all happened, and there's no point sitting around focusing on it, making it the priority in your life today. It don't get you anywhere.
Yeah, could you imagine? And I guess it would. I think of time. Time is the thing that we all we don't know how much we have. It's a very obviously a finite resource, and it's the biggest thing that we all have is time. Some people want to live as long as they can. Some people just can't wait to get out. Some people just are just like me, just wait until it happens. And I feel that when man, I kind of jumped off the edge on that one there. I just lost my train of thought again. I totally just ran it, but give me come back to me.
Time is a finite resource.
Yes, okay. So time being a finite resource. If you are constantly taking that time to focus on how you were offended or how something hurt you, I challenge people to think how much energy you spend pursuing those routes, that you could take that time and put those into your family, into your community, into your husband, into your wife, into your children, into other places, that the people that really matter most to you. Because I mean, that's where the peace comes from, is if you can let go of those things like that I've found, let go of those hurts that you have, that allows you to take your energies and focus on things that matter, that should matter most to you. If you love your family, then you should be doing those things to take care of your family, making sure they're fed, they're clothed, things like that, and then giving love to them, loving your wife, loving your husband. Those, you give those energies to that instead of those negative energies that are just sucking the good part of you, that you're taking it to fight instead of give love, where it could be you're just wasting your energy on something that, if you just let it go, how much would that love impact your marriage? How much would that love, that extra attention, affect your family? If you had that instead of focusing on those negative things that are always like the past that's eating you alive, whatever the past is. And people have very horrible things that happen in their past, even as individuals. But still, I've always heard, and counselors are always say that, like really, you have to come to peace with that to be able to carry on in order to survive the next day.
I there's no better closing than that right there. It couldn't be said any better. I think we're going to stop it there because that's a chef's kiss ending right there. Um, so I do just want to say briefly, and then I'll give it back over to Jim for closing. But um, I hope you guys gain something from this. I hope you all have a wonderful Thanksgiving. I hope you spend time with your family. I hope you use it as an opportunity to come closer together. And I just hope you all have a great and safe holiday. What you got? Anything for me in closing?
Yeah, guys, I hope you have a, great holiday. I hope you get the time to enjoy time with your family, and guess, just enjoy some good food, because I know that's what we're going to do too. So, God bless you all. I hope you have a good holiday, and we'll see you next time.